Hello and welcome to the Thriller Zone. I'm your host, David Temple. On today's show, we have another debut author. That's right, we're going to do a second Discovering New Author series in 1 month. Why? We're just jam-packed full of really super talent who wants to get on the show, and I'm excited to help debut them. Today's show, Steve Stratton has a book called Shadow Tear. This is not actually the book that you will be buying in the store. This was a put together arc before the book was finished, and it's a hefty one. But Steve is a debut author. He has a rich background in intelligence, and that fuels a terrific story. I could go on and on about it, but why do that when we could talk to the master himself? Right here on the Thriller Zone, please welcome debut author Steve Stratton. Today's show is about you, Steve Stratton.
Hi.
Congratulations on Pub Day today. Of course, we're recording this on Tuesday the 14th. It'll air next Thursday, but again, big, fat congratulations.
Thank you.
How are you feeling? You feeling pretty excited about it?
Yeah, considering I had a green goblin of a head cold after we got back, like all the way through Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Put the triangle sign up on the bedroom because he's toxic. Took the test, all negative, and it's like, nah, just a cold and allergies, I guess. So,
well, cheers. Here's writer's block coffee. Cheers to you. Cheers.
I'm gonna have to get some. Cheers.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, for crying out loud. It's so tasty. All right, we're gonna dig into the dude. I told Tammy, I said, honey, forget the weights out in the garage. I just pulled out Shadow Tear, and I'm just 1, 2, 3. It checks in at 900 and no, I'm kidding. Under 400, but dude, Shadow Tear, look at that.
You know, that I did that on purpose because I live in a retirement community and we need big print here. So.
Right. It is big print.
It is.
Look at the size of that print. I do have to get a hard copy signed from you for my life.
Oh yeah.
No,
this is just the smaller arcs that just came out. I'm still waiting on on Amazon. IGS doesn't have the hard. Last time I looked, the hard copy wasn't there on the list of available. It will be.
Just to jump ahead, I was going to save this for later, but yeah, it's available on Amazon right now. Kindle $9.99, paperback $19.99. We're going to do the hard pitch later to support debut authors. But you are a debut author.
Son of a gun! Finally.
We're going to get to Shadow Tear and Lance Bearwolf Thriller here in a second, but I do want my audience, since you're brand new, you're a debut. This is Discovering New Authors. You're a debut author. I want my audience to get to know the guy that I got to spend time with at Thrillerfest, who is, folks, I'm going to say this as though he's not here. It's just you and me. One of the nicest, most genuine guys you'll ever meet. Talented, smart. God, I thought I was kind of smart. He blows my smartness away, and he's super talented.
Okay. Am I a good shade of red now? Thank you.
Dude, I'm a big Steve Stratton fan. You have been there. I'm going to say this. I'm going to pimp a little love here. You have been there since the day I launched the show. You have encouraged and supported me since day one when nobody was even watching or listening. You were the first one there, and I'm forever humbly in your debt and honor, and thank you.
Very welcome.
Great big old love fest is now concluded. All right, can we spend like 90 seconds on Thrillerfest? Because you and I feels like we just got back. We was jam-packed to the rafters. You were there before me. It was just great food, great cocktails, great people, meeting all your mentors. Tell me, share with my audience your experience, because this was not your first one, if I recall correctly.
Well, this was my first in person.
Yeah, that's right. You did.
I'd been to one other virtual, but it was more a little craft fest, right? And doing pitches and trying to learn how to do pitches. Yeah. And so being in the craziness of a conference in a hotel, and once again, like you said, seeing all the people that I hold in high esteem, and the likes of Andrews and Wilson and Taylor and Chris Hottie and Bentley and other people in my genre that I look up to. That was amazing. But when somebody like a Brian Andrews takes the time to talk to you and goes, oh yeah, and and if you think about this or do that, and they give you and the same with Jeff, they give you these little nuggets of mentoring and stuff like that. It's literally like the old commercial. It's priceless, right?
Yeah.
My wife and I got there 3 days early. Our daughter came with her husband, and we put in 19,000 steps one day, walking all over, Liberty Island, Ellis Island, different things like that. And so it was a real great lead up to then the focus on Thrillerfest and the Craft Fest and what you can learn, not only, take away every time I go to one, something I learn something new, but also then Pitch Fest got a little crazy because some people were sick and not there, and there were changes. So I got, instead of 15 minutes, I got like extended time with some very senior people, agents and other people. Gina Panetario was just so kind with her time and her awesome. Her knowledge. Yeah, amazing. And so I came away, with three things, right? I always look when I go to these conferences, what can I learn? And, keep it to three so I could sort of remember those things and all my notes. I've got notes everywhere. I've got stickers. I've got, like say, business cards and other things like that. Made a lot of great connections. But that idea that, I need to right away engage, I want to tell a little story, and in our genre, my genre is really sort of like, you need to start with a knife or a gun or something, right? You need to start off quick. But then also in my debut novel, revenge is sort of easy. You're not worried about, motivation too much, that kind of thing. You don't have to expose too much character because you know what the character's thinking. It's like a revenge, right?
Sure.
But I learned how much I need to bring my readers into my characters. And so working on book 2 already, and some stuff that you've seen that really explore that more, just bang, bang, shoot, turn around, go, what's going on? That might be myself and some other guys I know, but that's not the average person. So I need to work on that. And then the third thing is that I was really so focused on my story that I wasn't focused on my pitch.
Oh yeah.
My log line, like we talked about, right? Yeah. What's the book about? What's the tagline? Yeah. How would I sell this in Hollywood?
Yeah.
What's that one line, that somebody could visualize the book and stuff. So I came away with 3 really strong things that I can improve on. And for me, once again, like I say, the whole event was just so worth the money and the time and meeting and having fun. And I mean, even got to meet Chris Hottie's parents, or brothers and sisters, not parents.
Oh, that crazy?
Sisters. Yeah. And it was like being back in SoCal again, Yeah. So very, very well worth it. Anybody who's new should do it at least once.
All right. A couple of quick points. By the way, that's a great summation. Thank you for that. I'm going to go in somewhat of a reverse order. It is something everybody should do once. It is not an inexpensive endeavor, so you got to save for it. But there is nothing, in my opinion, that opens your mind and broadens your scope, both in writing and understanding, as hanging out with your mentors. And Chris and I were talking about this, and I think Andrews and Wilson and I said this over breakfast, that more business and more understanding and more knowledge, inside scoop, is learned over dinners and cocktails and hanging out in the lobby than some of the classes themselves. Now, in 2019, I went to Thrillerfest. I did the whole shebang, from beginning to absolute end. I did not do that this time because of different reasons, but the Craft Fest is where you really learn stuff, right? And I love that. Back to Andrews and Wilson, 2 of the nicest guys walking the planet. Legitimate talents, not just luck of the draw. I mean, these guys put in the time, both in the military background like yourself, as well as studying the craft. And Brian, I remember this conversation in the lobby. I stood back as a third person watching you and he chat, and you're talking some of the same thing. And that's when I had an idea that I'll share at another time for this show that's going to add a great added dimension to the show. And you both instantly went, yeah, I'm in. So I can't wait for that. And thirdly, that log line, well, it's called a log line in movies, but it's a pitch. I used to say, and I'll wrap this up real quick. I used to say, oh, the elevator pitch, you know, you've got 30 stories. Let's pretend the building is 30 stories. Man, I think you got 10 stories. And my thing is, you got to get that thing down to a sentence that makes me go, oh, well, I can't not read this book now. So there you go. And thank you for those biggest takeaways, because that's what readers and listeners who want to hone their craft need to hear. And whether it's Thrillerfest or BoucherCon or Mystery Writers of America, I mean, whatever it is, there's plenty of them out there. You really do make strategic and sizable leaps in your understanding by attending these things.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Now, as we continue to get to know, folks, check this out. Steve began his military career at the White House Communications Agency alongside two guys you may have heard of, Ford and Carter, presidents both. And matter of fact, let's just stop right there and tell us what that was like, talking about a front row seat to history.
I came up from Georgia, from the Army Signal School at Fort Gordon, 2 weeks before Nixon resigned. And as I was driven into our location in Georgetown, right in the heart of DC, this classified facility we had, my sponsor said, "You see that?" And I said, "Yeah, isn't that the Watergate?" And he said, "Yeah, don't go there." And I was like, yeah, it was a time of upheaval and other things like that. But what comes out of it as a 19-year-old is you just are right in the deep end. So right away, I'm, up at the White House working on something, and the vice president walks by, or, and Rockefeller's like, after a while, he got to know my name and would say, "Hi, Steve," in his gravelly voice, and Kissinger and Ford, and all this is going on, and you're doing your job, and you're a 19-year-old, and you're trying to have a little fun, but all this is going on around you. So it's amazing. It was quite an experience. I learned how to ski actually in Vail in advance of Ford showing up, because I had to carry a radio. So as I've said, like on my newsletter, my first trip out of the United States in advance of a vice presidential visit was DC to Paris, Paris to New Delhi, New Delhi to Bangladesh. And, I'm all of a sudden I'm living all that stuff I saw in National Geographics, which I read every month as a kid. I'm not making any money, but I'm certainly having fun. And
yeah. Do you have, I know that you must have a best of highlight reel in your mind, but in the interest of time, do you have a particularly memorable moment during your time there in the White House that it's kind of like when you're bouncing your grandkids on your knee going, all right, let Gramps tell you this one story that'll blow your mind?
Actually, it took place in Vail, and I made a hot toddy for President Ford. And I didn't know how to make drinks. I'm like, "What's this supposed to be in here?" "I don't know." "He's coming over." He was just such a very nice, regular kind of guy in, the world's most powerful job.
Sure.
But he was just a wonderful person.
Well, next, folks, Steve transitioned to the Secret Service. And again, I want to know, because you, and you're going to hear this a couple of times, you lived a life that many of us will never, ever imagine of living. So what in the wide world of top tier political agencies was that like?
Well, first, let me say I was not a special agent. So I was what was called a technical specialist.
Okay.
So I worked on
Still
alarms.
cool, dude. Still cool.
Oh, yeah. No, very much so. A big part of the team, the technical security division. So once again, going out on these advanced trips with the agents and prepping the space, whether it's Atlanta or Paris or Helsinki or Bonn, Cologne, for the president to come in. And in my case, when I was home, I was working at the White House and alarms and video and some EOD stuff, but out in the field, mostly working to make sure that between dogs and people, we made sure areas were safe with explosive ordnance details that we got from the Air Force and the Army. So one of my favorite moments was we were with Carter, and he was in Poland, and it was that wintry night at the airport where he gave a speech to the Polish people, and his interpreter actually misrepresented what he said about. He said he loved the Polish people, and the interpreter said he lusted after the Polish people. And I was behind. I was with a Polish Secret Service guy / KGB guy in the back, and we were just dying. We were drinking a vodka and eating some salmon and crackers and stuff, and we were cracking up. It's like.
All right, now, as though that weren't enough, Steve, now, as we come to the conclusion of his career, and we're truncating this handsomely, Steve was awarded his Green Beret in '86. And from then, is this right? From then till about 2000, you were deployed with 20th Special Forces on counter drug and training missions. So what was that like?
There are 2 National Guard units in the Army structure for Special Forces. So we have active duty groups like the 5th in the Middle East, the Legion, the 7th down in South America. My group was called the 20th, and we're out of Mississippi. And then the 19th is out of Salt Lake. We actually support these other active duty units, and we'll go in and like alternates. One of the last times I was in Colombia, I'm using my limited Spanish to train them how to jump from hey-ho, free fall, and survive and make sure all the equipment's right and things like that. So we had opportunities to not only go down into Southern Command region, Ecuador and Colombia, for example, but also to do counter-drug missions, very much like I describe in the book, in just not too far from where you're at, Los Padres National Forest.
Yeah.
Right. So the DEA would pay us to bring a C-5A Galaxy, the U.S. Air Force's largest airplane, full of helicopters and men, and then we would go in and train in these areas. And if we saw anything like an old trailer, or a covert runway, or a 18-wheeler that had been used to make meth, we report that in. Mm-hmm. So we're doing military training, but per presidential executive order, we could do that military training at the behest of the DEA.
And that is not the end, folks. Now, young Steve here goofs off by developing cybersecurity products to support the intelligence community. That is, when he's not mountain biking, motorcycle riding, trout fishing in the gorgeous, beautiful state of Colorado. And is there a way you can tell me and not have to kill me afterwards? Tell me what kind of products you're developing.
We actually have a website, and you can see these products.
Oh, cool.
How they do their business internally is something I can't talk about.
Sure.
But what they're all about is information sharing, right? As we have gone all the way back from our first Gulf War, where we had French and Ukrainians and Poles and Italians and everybody else with us. It's about how do we share information, not only internally from intelligence to our warfighters, but with our partners, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we don't shoot each other, so we can execute together, those kind of things. And that became a big thing during the GWAT, like in Afghanistan, right? Because it became NATO-led, right, and NATO countries, not just the US, because we went off and did some things in Iraq. These products help share information, and that is vitally important, right? I could have all the great intelligence in the world, but if I can't share it with you because you're going to go do the mission,
right,
what good is it, right? So
exactly. So give me that website. I'm just curious.
It's called forcepoint.com.
Okay. Well, one more last thing, though, before we get to your book. I want to spotlight one of the charities that you support, which I thought was amazing. I was researching this last night, the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. I know what it is, but tell our audience what it is all about.
The reason I like this charity is because the work it does goes across generations. So when a family loses a warrior, and that can affect really the future potential of like the children of the family left behind, things like that. So They're doing a bunch more now with direct funding to wounded veterans and things like that. But one of the best things they do, in my mind, is they help the children of fallen soldiers get into college. And they have this huge success rate of them coming out of college with degrees and getting into the world and doing wonderful things themselves. What little I do and getting them money just gives me goosebumps, because it's such a high quality percentage of dollar that goes to the people that need it. It's not just consumed up in the headquarters.
So. I get it. And that is specialops.org. But I love that. This is one of the things I like about you. You're walking the walk, and you've spent your time in service to your country. You've been places and seen things that we will never know about, which all of this leads to the rich tapestry that you're now able to put into your next chapter of life, to borrow the metaphor for a book, and that is Shadow Tear, once again, of course, starring Lance Bear Wolf. Let's take a short break. We'll return with Steve Stratton and Lance Bear Wolf right after this.
Hi, Steve Stratton here on the Thriller Zone with David Temple. My book is called Shadow Tear. I hope you'll take a look at it, and I look forward to seeing you on the Thriller Zone.
And now back to the show.
This thing is chock full of so much that we don't have nearly enough time to talk about. But I want to hit a little bit of background. I want to ask background because I want to know about the writer that is Steve Stratton. When did you first know you wanted to become an author? And when did you first know? And how did this book come to you in this form?
Well, I'll answer that first question. Sure. Really around 2020 is when, I started thinking of, okay, I'm doing more than just writing this for Steve. So the inciting incident took place in 93. Okay. And from 93 on, I did storyboards, right? Something that in the contracting world, you use storyboards to write a proposal, much like you use storyboards in Hollywood, things like that, right? I flowcharted the whole thing, or at least the major ideas. But I just never had, honestly, I never had the self-confidence to write. And finally, Ellie, my wife, was like, you need to get this out. You've talked about so much of this story. You need to write it. Coincident to that was I found Jerry Jenkins. Jerry Jenkins is the author with Tim LaHaye of the Left Behind Christian series.
Yep.
He lives down in the Black Forest, which is a community right just south of me in Colorado Springs. And so I'd started doing this 6-month intensive with him. Wow. And I learned so much, and I learned how much I still had to learn, right? And that got me going, and I got excited about, at the start, it didn't matter if I was going to publish or not. It was all about writing this book and getting it out. And my teammates know that I'm a pretty darn good storyteller. I had Secret Service agents tell me how good I'd be undercover. So you can imagine I could tell a story. Then I started to get interested in what would it be like to start down this journey people talk about, to become a published author.
Now let's talk about Lance Bear Wolf. What about Lance makes him different than a lot of our other heroes that we're reading about and learning about these days?
Well, this was a conscious decision, looking across the broad spectrum. You've got Pike Logans, and you've got Scott Harvath, and you've got Chunks and Tier 1 series and things. So I'm looking at all these people. I love their writing, and it's like, wow, geez, I can't do the Scott Harvath thing. Even though I was Secret Service, I mean, I can't take this, I can't take that.
Right.
But I was just looking for something fresh and a different view. I decided on a protagonist that actually is a Native American.
Love it.
Indian. And so the people I was always interested in was Chief Plentycoo of the Crow. He was the Native American who was asked to come to the dedication of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. He was, at the end of his life, called the Chief of Chiefs and represented all the nations into the government.
Wow.
And one of his sayings, and I'll paraphrase this, that really struck me was that education is the key. Without education, we'll always be the victim. We'll always be down below. With education, we can be equal to the white man and take our place in society. So he had a different view. And so between Chief Plenty Coup and then some of the traditions of the Crow, that's always been of interest to me. So I thought, what a better place to put some of that and bring some of that out. So I just didn't want to do another CIA Secret Service guy, a lot of people doing that really good. I didn't want to do that.
Got it. And that makes total sense. One of the things that I so enjoyed about this book was reading about and then kind of daydreaming, mentally revisiting parts of the country that I grew up in, North Carolina, Blue Ridge Mountains, parts of Georgia. And you captured that sense of South so well. And it always endears me to writers who really capture that feel. It's not just, hey, we all go talk with an accent and it's hot. It's cliche. I want to know, did you travel? And I know you and Ellie are big travelers. Did you travel much to the Carolinas while you were doing some of this research?
20 years ago, I was traveling from Central Command in Florida up into what's called Sapphire Valley, right there at the corner of North Carolina, Georgia, and South Carolina. Yeah. Half an hour to the Chattooga River. It's where they filmed Last of the Mohicans. What more beautiful spot, right? Stunning. Yeah, exactly. And then, so I use those kinds of things, memories from my uncle's place in Fullerton and Anaheim, right? Yeah. And Elsinore, you get it. Being 68 years old, I do have this wealth of experience and have been a lot of places, so I can use those in my books. And I like diving in to show, not at surface level, but give some details so somebody like yourself knows. Oh yeah, he's been there. He understands. Yeah.
One thing I learned about you when we were hanging out in Thrillerfest, and if anybody follows you on social media, you spend a lot of time outdoors between motorcycles, mountain biking, hunting, fishing. You got property up in the woods, and it's clear that this love of nature shows up in your book. And yet, just another little slice of originality and color that brings it all to life. But I want to circle back to Lance Beowulf. Where do you see him going next? I'm assuming there is a sequel. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, just a quick aside, when I signed with Force Poseidon, the publisher was very honest with me and said, I've got a backlog. We're not going to get published for a little while here. And I'm like, that's okay. I'll keep writing. So I actually have 80+% of the second book done.
Bam.
And the team expands beyond Tampa. It's still a drug fight, but now it becomes multinational. Okay. I'll say that.
That's awesome. I love the fact that you're already thinking that far ahead. And I don't want to take away the steam, the heat, the energy of your book having just dropped by capitalizing too much on what is yet to come. But when people get through this book, they'll realize, oh, okay, well, when's that next one coming? And do you have even a hint of a drop date? It's got to be sometime next spring, summer, probably.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about initially right now. All publishers have, either you're doing it yourself or they have a backlog. And so, for example, Eric Bishop, my good friend Eric Bishop, right? He's got his Breach of Trust sequel that needs to be published, right? And so it'd be after Eric. So I would expect in the summer again of next year.
Got it. And if we may, because we're both such huge fans of Eric Bishop, how about that Body Man?
Yeah. Once again, another amazing book by somebody who never served, but did some really good research.
And this is a point that's coming up on a show with Don Bentley. And we were talking about the details of how some writers like yourself who have lived it and can write it, and then writers like Eric and myself who have not lived it, but we have to just overcompensate, for lack of a better term, to really be diligent in our research to make you, the specialist, believe that we know what we're talking about. All right, before we hit to rapid fire questions, as we begin to wrap up, I ask the same closing questions. You've been there since the beginning, that I ask of all my authors, debut or seasoned. If you were to offer a single piece of advice, and it can be one or two, to developing authors, somebody who's in the middle of it, beginning it, considering it, what would that be, Steve?
Beta readers.
That's a first answer.
You've got to get other eyes on your work. I send a piece. I'm in a critique group through ITW. What a great place to have that happen, for example. And I think I've got it really well crafted. And then Jack Stewart sees it and goes, "Ooh, well, there's that and that and that." I'm like, "Oh my God, you're right." So beta readers, I mean, my wife loves to read my work. She's a decent beta reader. She finds things, but she's also, my biggest fan. So you got to weigh that. So beta readers, getting critique readers, beta readers, whatever you call it, number one thing that will help your craft improve, different eyes.
That is exceptional, folks. Did you hear that? Beta readers. It's funny because with Tammy used to be the very first person that would read my stuff. And she has such a unique mind. She catches all these tiny little details. You can say one color on page 4, and if you've repeated it 3 times by the page of 74, she's caught it. But I don't do that anymore because now I try to perfect it better before I hand it to her, so that not only do I feel like, hey, honey, see, I'm getting better, but also, to your point, they're our biggest fans. But that's awesome. And as I said, don't forget, Shadow Tear just dropped on Amazon. We're recording this on the 14th. It'll air later. And you should pick up a copy to support your debut thriller writer at $9.99 for a Kindle and $19.99 for a paperback. I remember the day, Steve, when I used to think, man, that's a lot of money. But now I think, when you consider, and I know this sounds like a sales pitch, so forgive me for a second, but when you consider the fact it takes us a year or 2 or 3, who knows, I think $10 or $20, we'll go out and we'll drop $9 on a friggin' foo-foo drink, a coffee drink for not even a cocktail. But we won't, I don't know, man, $9 for a book, that's a lot of money. Oh, okay, well, let's see what your time is worth.
The case of Eric and I and K.R. Paul working with Forest Poseidon, they're small, so they don't have Atria. They don't have Simon & Schuster kind of pull where they get the cost of goods is much lower because they're printing so many more.
There's a saying that my sister and I use all the time, and it's so brilliant and it's so concise. I'm not saying we're brilliant. I'm saying the saying is brilliant. Start where you stand. My best piece of advice, just start where you stand. People go, oh, but I haven't had the career like Steve, or I haven't been in radio like Dave. Well, yeah, but what have you done, and how can you capitalize on what you've already lived and what you know today? So start where you stand. All right, guess what? Time for rapid fire questions. Going to be super easy for you right out of the gate. Pen and paper or keyboard?
Keyboard.
Quiet library or noisy coffee shop?
Oh, quiet library.
Mm-hmm. If you had to choose, would it be, and this is a tough one for you, fishing or hunting?
Hunting.
Okay. When you and your wife Ellie get away, exotic island, the mountains, or a big city, perhaps in another country?
We like all those, but the last place we went was exotic island.
Sorry, last one. Here we go. A personal favorite, especially given our mutual love of good food and wine. You and your wife are joining Tammy and I for dinner here in San Diego to celebrate the fact that Hollywood just bought Shadow Tear and wants to make it into a series. Now, I'm going to divert a little bit and surprise you with a twist. You're going to help me grill, one of my favorite pastimes. So question number 1, what are we going to toss on the heat? And number 2, what will we serve to drink alongside it, because that's one of your expertises?
Shrimp tacos, and we're going to be serving some añejo level margaritas over ice.
On the skinnier
good, clean,
side.
Yeah, good, clean California, fresh vegetables, avocado. If you like cilantro, go for it. Not my favorite.
Yeah, that is superb. When you come out, I'm actually going to make you on the grill that very thing. I have now that you say you don't like cilantro, that's going to change my recipe a little bit, but I have a garlic chili lime cilantro grilled shrimp that will make you slap your grandmother.
Nice.
and the drinks to accompany it is what you called perfect. And by the way, how do you think we keep, Steve and I stay in such stellar shape at this age as we eat really good, clean food, and we drink top shelf beverages, and we work out and we exercise. So
gotta keep it moving, right?
Body in motion stays in motion. You heard me say it before. All right. To learn more, visit SteveStrattonUSA.com. And of course, help support Steve efforts and the efforts of many who help the spouse and children of fallen special ops personnel. If you'd like to pledge your support, go to specialops.org. We did not plan this in advance. We received nothing from it. My heart reaches out to your heart, who's reaching out to other hearts. And I love that. So also, follow Steve like I do on Twitter at Stratton Books and on Instagram at Steve Stratton USA. Sir, this has been exceptional.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed it. You're a great interviewer, the best.
Well, thank you. You're very kind. I hope I'm just a mirror reflecting all the goodness and love and inspiration that comes from you. I do want to say, we are excited about your book. Please share the love, because when you're debuting, people, I think sometimes people don't understand just how important that opening window, that opening gate is so key. Right, Steve?
Absolutely. Yeah. Much appreciated to everybody who's already got on social media. Thank you too, David, for doing that. And look forward to a whole lot more, and this being a great launch. Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll be holding a spot for you right here at the Thriller Zone when number 2 comes around next year, buddy.
That sounds great. Thanks a lot.
As you may recall, I announced recently that Dean Koontz, only one of the biggest authors in the entire world, is going to be right here on the Thriller Zone in celebration of our 1-year anniversary. That was originally going to be on 6/30. However, there has been a change in scheduling. We are going to move that show to July 21st because his book drops on the 19th. So in order to make the big hoopla for Dean Koontz and the big dark sky, we're moving it off to July. However, what does that mean? We've got a very special revised 1-year anniversary spectacular extravaganza. Now, as we go into year 2, we're going to expand the show because our numbers are growing and people are listening. So I want to give you more. Not just political, military, psychological thrillers. We're going to expand out into some sci-fi thrillers, romance thrillers. I mean, any kind of thriller you can think about, we're going to do it. But we're going to take it one step further, which I will begin to share more and more information as we move along. I'm David Temple, your host, and I'll see you next time for another edition of
The Thriller Zone.